All right, so in terms of weather, we seem to have gone from one extreme to the other. Yesterday, the weather was, well, we had snow, sun, rain, wind, you name it. All four seasons, all within a couple of hours. Today, we've taken a ferry ride over to Suðuroy. It's a 2-hour ferry ride, brilliant ferry ride, and we're here to photograph these massive cliffs. But as you can see, it's quite sunny today, which isn't necessarily ideal for photography, especially right now. It's about noon. But you can see behind me here we have these massive cliffs over in the background here, and then looking this way, I'll just turn around here. You can see we have these massive cliffs back here. I'm not sure on the height of these, but I'm guessing they're probably around 1,000 or more feet in height. So quite spectacular. So we're going to spend a little bit of time down sea level more or less here, and then at some point we're going to hike up to the top of the cliff and see if we can get some shots up there. Okay, I'm just sitting here doing a little bit of a time lapse here, but I have to admit that the light is a little bit harsh right now. Now, ideally, in an ideal world, what I would usually do in a place like this is rent a camper, or at least stay close to the area where you're going to photograph. The problem with staying in hotels and that is that a lot of the times, you know, these accommodations aren't anywhere near where you want to photograph. So a camper van for the Faroes would be an amazing thing to do. The only problem is that camper vans on the Faroes are extremely expensive to rent. Now, since I'm only here for the day, like we have to catch the ferry back at 6:30, we're not going to get fantastic light. I was hoping that we'd actually get similar light to yesterday, where it was very stormy. Because at least then you get beams of light coming through, lots of drama in the skies. When you have blue skies like this, it's hard to, you know, really get that dramatic light that you're looking for. So there are quite a few clouds in the sky. So what I'll often do is just wait for the clouds to go in front of the sun and try and take images that way. It's not ideal, but you know, it generally works pretty well. So the scene that I'm looking at right now back here is really quite backlit, so it's not great lighting, but it's an absolutely spectacular scene. So it looks like the clouds are moving in slowly, and then it'll just cut down on that harshness, or that contrast between shadows and highlights, because that's what really ruins an image. If you have too much light on something, you just get that high contrast, tons of details that you don't necessarily want. So it's nice to have that subdued light.
Okay, now considering how sunny it was, I'm actually quite happy with how this image turned out, and quite surprised, to be honest with you. Now, it certainly isn't my finest work, and the clouds definitely helped on this day. If it had been a cloudless day, then it would have been really hard to get anything decent out of it. There was just too much contrast for that time of day. That's the neat thing about digital cameras. It always amazes me how much dynamic range they have in those sensors. And of course, as soon as you start going up to full frame, there's just so much more room in there to fiddle about with shadows, bring out details. And as long as you're not overexposing your highlights, it's very easy to bring out all of those details throughout the image. Now, for this particular image, I did darken the image overall, and then I decided to brighten up the foreground rocks, because I found them quite interesting and it adds quite a bit of depth. The cliffs in the background, even though they were really dramatic, they're not really the main subject of the photograph. They just kind of act as a cool backdrop. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with the image, considering how poor the light was at that time of day.
you're going to put your camera out on the edge like that? All right, hopefully you can hear me okay over this wind. So this is absolutely fantastic. We've come up to the top of the cliff here, and the views are just stunning. So I'm taking a few time-lapse movies, and also mostly verticals, because I really love this direct line on the coastline here. Now I have to admit, the light is not fantastic. It's kind of like what you might see on a chocolate box or in a calendar, but nonetheless it's still a fantastic spot, and I wouldn't miss this for the world. So Gavin is way down there on the edge of the cliff. I'm not quite sure what he's looking for. He's probably looking for a line on this cliff with another cliff behind us, which is even larger. It's probably another 500 feet taller. It's just absolutely gigantic. Looking over the edge is a little unnerving, and it's quite funny to see the sheep just kind of wandering around right on the very edge. Not me, that's for sure. So just going to keep wandering around this area. I might go down a little bit further, see if I can get another angle looking this way. But yeah, this is just incredible.
As I've said a number of times throughout these videos, wait 5 minutes in the Faroes and the weather will change. And sure enough, it did change. 1 minute it was beautiful sunshine, and then the clouds came rolling in and it just absolutely poured with rain, and then it cleared again. So it worked out quite well, because while I was taking photographs of the coastline here, the clouds rolled in, and of course we got a little bit of light hitting the green hills, so that added quite a bit of drama and made it a little bit more moody. Now I did help it along a little bit in Lightroom by just darkening the clouds at the top a little bit and putting a vignette around the outside of the frame, just to draw your attention to the sunlit area. And of course I dodged that bit a little bit as well, just to make it a bit brighter. Okay, something else that I tried was doing some vertical panos, and I don't think I've ever done a vertical pano before, so this was a great opportunity. And this one turned out quite well. The light was quite nice. I did the same kind of processing on this image as the last one. The only problem with it is that the foreground is a little bit soft. I wasn't paying attention to my focus, so keep a note of that. Keep an eye on your focus all the time, because sometimes it'll slip out a little bit, and that's kind of what happened here. I should have perhaps taken one image of the foreground in sharp focus and then the background in sharp focus. Regardless, it still worked out really nice. It's a nice image, and I'm quite happy with it. Alright, now after I had finished taking a few shots from the top, I decided to go and see what Gavin was doing, and I'm really glad that I went down that way, because the views looking back to where we were standing were absolutely stunning. That cliff was so majestic, and the height of it was just dizzying. Now on the way it was quite funny, because 1 minute it was sunny, and then all of a sudden the clouds just came in, and we just had a torrential downpour, and it looked quite neat. So I managed to take this photograph here. I loved the layers in the image and the dark moodiness. So now this was a handheld shot. I did brighten up the highlights to just bring them up a little bit, make it look a bit more appealing, but I kept the clouds and the cliffs quite dark, just to maintain some of that moodiness.
All right, I've walked down the hill to where Gavin is, and I have to say, I think he's got the spot of the day. This is absolutely incredible. Now, a minute ago it was just pouring with rain, and now the sun's come out again. But the light on these archways and pinnacles is just stunning. It really is. Okay, so as far as photography goes, Gavin and I have set up a couple of time lapse, and when I got here, he was composing an image in this. There's a bit of a natural gully here, so you can kind of get the first pinnacle or sea stack kind of framed in between this notch here. So that works really well. Vertical and horizontal work really well. When I first got here, it wasn't quite as sunny as this, so the light was a little bit better. Now it's getting a little bit harsh. Just seems to come in waves of, you know, really sunny weather, and then you'll get a hailstorm or a rainstorm, and then it clears up again. But yeah, this is probably the most stunning view that I've seen on the islands since I've been here, I think.
Out of all of the locations that we visited on our short trip to the Faroe Islands, I think that the cliffs on Suðuroy were probably my favorite location out of all of them. They're just so dramatic, and I'm happy with the images that I got, but I think that if you spent a little bit more time there, you could really come away with something quite spectacular, especially if you got some nice light in the evening. I mean, the place is just unbelievable. The scale of the cliffs. Actually, if I zoom in really closely here, I just discovered this while I was processing this image here. You can see that at the very top of that cliff there's 3 or 4 people standing there. So that kind of gives you an idea of the height of these cliffs. Now, luckily, I get a second kick at the bucket. We're going back again, and if anybody's interested in joining us, then please be sure to visit my website, and you'll find all the details there, or you can visit Gavin's website. So thank you ever so much for watching this week's video. That's it for the Faroe Islands. Next week I'm back in Scotland, and then after that back in British Columbia, and then after that hopefully I'll have some dramatic stories to tell you from Greenland. Until then, everybody, thanks again for watching. Please, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give me a thumbs up, and as always, if you enjoy the content of my channel, be sure to share and subscribe. Until next time, thanks ever so much. Bye for now.